For my make or break project, I made a shoulder joint or glenohumeral joint. The true shoulder joint articulation is made between the humerus bone and the scapula. Some features are here depicted on my model, such as the acromion and coracoid processes on the scapula, and in a tubercular groove, which is where the lying tendon of the biceps brachii passes through. This joint is classified as a ball and socket joint, and hence has 3 degrees of freedom, and its movements include flexion and extension, abduction and adduction, lateral and medial rotation. Or if you put all these movements together there, it's gonna give us circumduction. My first steps were to create a salt dough mixture and sculpt the shapes of the humerus and the scapula. Then I baked the sculpted dough in the oven at a temperature of 120 degrees Celsius for 3.5 hours until the bones turned solid. Blue balloons were used to show the ligaments on this model, and these balloons were glued to the bones using crazy glue. The superior glenohumeral ligament arises from the glenoid and inserts on the anatomical neck of the humerus. It limits external rotation and inferior translation of the humeral head anteriorly. The middle glenohumeral ligament arises from the glenoid and inserts on the anatomical neck of the humerus. It limits external rotation and anterior translation of the humeral head. The inferior glenohumeral ligament arises from the glenoid and inserts on the humerus just behind the lesser tuberosity. It prevents the humeral translation inferiorly, weakly because it's loose, so we can get our arms behind our head. It divides into 3 sections: inferior glenohumeral ligament, anterior band, inferior glenohumeral ligament, axillary pouch, and inferior glenohumeral ligament, posterior band. The transverse humeral ligament keeps the biceps tendon tethered to the inner tubercular groove. Here we are seeing the synovial membrane, and the biceps tendon goes through here. The coracohumeral ligament arises from the lateral border of the coracoid process and passes obliquely downward and lateralward to the front of the greater tubercle and the humerus, and it prevents the superior humeral translation. The coracoacromial ligament joins 2 parts of the shoulder blade or scapula, connecting the acromion to coracoid process. It forms a part of a protective covering for the humerus. The following muscles were made using paper and colored pencils. Then these pieces are glued on the bones after each level of explanation. On the anterior side, I made subscapularis, which is originated on the subscapularis fossa on the anterior side of the scapula, and it inserts on the lesser tuberosity, and its action is medial rotation of the arm and is innervated by the upper and lower subscapular nerve. Bursa was made using orange foam. Bursae are fluid-filled sacs typically positioned between tendons or ligaments and bony features, and their function is to reduce friction during movements. You can see subscapular bursa here, which is found between the subscapularis muscle and the chest wall. On the posterior side, I made teres minor, which is originated from the inferior part of the lateral border of the scapula posteriorly, and it inserts onto great tuberosity. Its action is lateral rotation of the arm and is innervated by the axillary nerve. Infraspinatus is originated from the infraspinous fossa on the posterior side of the scapula, and it inserts into greater tuberosity. It's the strongest lateral rotator of the arm and is innervated by the scapular nerve. Supraspinatus is originated from the supraspinous fossa on the posterior side of the scapula, and it inserts into greater tuberosity. Its function is abduction of the arm and weakly laterally rotates the arm. It is innervated by the suprascapular nerve. The subacromial bursa is located below a part of the shoulder blade called the acromion. Teres major is originated from the inferior angle of the scapula posteriorly, and it inserts into the medial lip of the inner tubercular groove anteriorly. Its function is extension, abduction, and medial rotation of the arm, and is innervated by the lower subscapular nerve.